I came home from work, and my neighbor called, asking why contractors were ripping apart my dead Grans house. My uncle had forged documents and sold it behind our backs 3 weeks after the funeral. 3 weeks. That's all it took for my Uncle Derek to sell my dead grandmother's house, forge legal documents, and pocket £287,000. While my brother and I were still picking out flowers for her grave, Derek was shaking hands with a property developer and wiring stolen money offshore. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Gran always thought we were useless with money." That was a lie, and I have every single piece of paper to prove it. My name is Claire. I'm 31. I'm a veterinary technician living in Bristol, and this is how I caught my uncle red-handed. My gran, Margaret, everyone called her Maggie, bought her house in Clifton in 1979 for £12,000. A 3-story Victorian terrace with original fireplaces and a walled back garden and bay windows that looked out towards the suspension bridge. By the time she passed, it was worth close to £287,000. That house was the anchor of our family. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Sunday afternoon with tea and biscuits, and her little dog Pepper sitting on whoever's lap was warmest. I grew up spending weekends there. I'd walk over from my flat in Redland with my own dog, a spaniel called Biscuit, and Gran would fuss over him for hours. My brother Liam, he's 28, works as an electrician over in Bath. He did all the odd jobs around the place. Fixed the boiler when it packed in, repointed the brickwork on the front wall, painted the bathroom ceiling twice because Gran wanted a different shade of white. We loved that house because we loved her, and she was in every room of it. Gran was sharp until her final months. Proper sharp. She did the crossword in ink every morning and never missed a question on Pointless. In 2019, she went to a solicitor on Queens Road and had a will drawn up, clear as glass. The house was to be split 3 ways. 1/3 to me, 1/3 to Liam, 1/3 to her son, my Uncle Derek. Derek was 58, semi-retired estate agent living in Weston-super-Mare. He was Gran's only child, and he'd always been the golden one, the charmer, the one who could talk his way into anything and out of everything. Gran loved him, but she wasn't blind. She told me once, sitting in her kitchen with Pepper on her lap, "Derek's got charm, love, but he's got expensive taste and no savings to match." He drove a leased BMW, took holidays in Marbella twice a year, wore watches he couldn't afford, and he visited Gran roughly twice a year, usually when he needed something, a signature, a loan, a favor he'd never return. Gran passed in late October, pneumonia following a fall in her kitchen. She was 84. The paramedics got there fast, but her lungs were already too weak. Liam and I were with her at the hospital that last night. Derek arrived the next morning. He cried for about 10 minutes and then started making phone calls in the corridor. The funeral was at a small chapel in Westbury-on-Trim, maybe 40 people. Gran's neighbors, her friends from the garden club, a few of Liam's mates, my colleagues from the surgery. Derek wore a new suit. He gave a reading. It was perfectly delivered, but all through the service, he kept stepping outside to take calls. I asked him afterwards if he was all right, and he smiled and said, "Just handling some of Mum's affairs, love. Nothing for you to worry about." After the funeral, Derek offered to take care of the house, collect the post, check on things, keep an eye on it while we sorted ourselves out. Liam and I agreed. We were grateful. We were still waking up and forgetting she was gone for a few seconds every morning before it hit us again. Derek asked for a spare key. I handed mine over without a second thought. 2 weeks later, I texted him about arranging a meeting with a solicitor to begin probate. His reply came back within a minute. "Already in hand. I'll sort it. You two just focus on yourselves." I read it twice. Something about the wording sat wrong with me. Too eager, too tidy, like he was closing a door I hadn't realized was open. But I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that grief makes you suspicious of everyone. I told myself Derek was family, and family doesn't steal from family. I was wrong about that. On a gray Tuesday morning in November, 3 weeks after we buried my grandmother, my phone rang at 7:30. It was Mrs. Harding from next door. She'd lived beside Gran for 22 years. Her voice was shaking, and I could hear machinery in the background. "Claire, love, why are there men ripping the kitchen out of your grandmother's house?" I drove to Clifton so fast I don't remember the route. Ran 2 amber lights on White Ladies Road and parked half on the curb outside Grans' house. The front door was propped open with a breeze block. 2 contractors in high-vis jackets were inside tearing out the original kitchen cabinets. The ones Gran had painted duck egg blue in 1994. The ones with the little brass handles I used to reach up to on my tiptoes when I was 5 years old. There was a skip on the pavement out front, already half full. I could see Gran's curtain rods sticking out the top. The old Welsh dresser was in pieces. Door handles, skirting boards. 44 years of her life in a metal container on the street. I walked straight in and found the foreman. Big bloke, paint-spattered trousers, clipboard under his arm. I said, "Who are you, and who told you to do this?" He looked confused, pulled out a signed instruction letter from a plastic folder. It was from Derek, identifying himself as sole legal owner of the property. His signature at the bottom, a solicitor's stamp I didn't recognize. The foreman said they'd been contracted to strip the interior for a full renovation. The developer wanted it gutted by Christmas. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to be sick on Gran's bare floorboards. I called Liam. He answered on the second ring. I couldn't keep my voice steady. I said, "Get to Gran's house. Now. Something's happened." He drove from Bath in 40 minutes. I've never seen him that pale. We stood together in what used to be the kitchen, surrounded by exposed pipes and torn-out plaster, and we called Derek. I put him on speaker. He answered on the third ring. Casual. Light. Like we were calling about Christmas plans. "Derek, I'm standing in Gran's house. There are builders ripping it apart. What is going on?" "Calm down, Claire. I sold the house. It's done." The air went out of the room. Liam grabbed the phone from me. "You sold it? It's not yours to sell. The will says 3 ways, Derek. 3 ways. Your gran gave me power of attorney before she died. Full authority over the property. I made the decision that was best for everyone." Liam's voice cracked. "Best for everyone? We didn't agree to anything. We didn't even know. Because you two would have dithered for months. You always do. Mom always said you were useless with money. She wanted me to handle it. I got a fair price, and I'm managing the proceeds. You'll get your share when the time is right." I took the phone back. "When the time is right? Where's the money, Derek? Where is it right now?" He hung up. Liam kicked a piece of skirting board across the room and swore. The sound echoed off the bare walls. I stood there looking at the space where Gran's cooker used to be and felt something change inside my chest. The grief was still there, but it had twisted into something harder, something with edges. This wasn't just sadness anymore. This was fury. I knew Derek was lying about the power of attorney. Gran was lucid until her last week. She did the crossword in ink every single morning. She watched Pointless every afternoon and shouted the answers before the contestants. She never mentioned signing any legal documents. She never mentioned giving Derek authority over anything. I decided right there, standing on the floorboards my grandmother walked on for 40 years, that I was going to find out exactly what he did. And I was going to make him answer for every single penny. The next morning at the veterinary clinic, I told my colleague Priya Sharma. She'd worked 4 years at a law firm in Temple Meads before switching to veterinary nursing. Something about the hours. But she still had the instincts. When I told her what Derek had done, Her face went hard and still, like she was reading an invisible document in her head. If he forged a power of attorney, there'll be a paper trail, she said. Start with the land registry. Every property transfer in England and Wales is recorded. If he sold that house, we can see exactly when, to whom, and under what legal authority. The power of attorney would have to be attached to the filing. That evening, Priya sat beside me at my kitchen table and helped me log on to the HM Land Registry portal. We searched Grans' address. The entry loaded on my screen at 9:30. There it was. The house had been transferred to a property development company called Avangate Holdings Ltd. Transfer date was 11 days after Grans' funeral. Purchase price listed as £287,000. And the power of attorney attached to the filing was dated the 14th of August, 2 months before Gran died. Except I knew for a fact that on the 14th of August, Gran was sitting in her armchair watching Antiques Roadshow with me. I brought fish and chips. Biscuit slept at her feet. She laughed at a woman who brought in an ugly vase worth £4,000, and she never signed a thing. I started building the case the same night I found the land registry entry. I couldn't sleep anyway. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of tea that went cold 3 times, and I pulled apart every thread I could find. The power of attorney was dated the 14th of August. I scrolled through my phone and found photos from that exact week. Gran and me at a cafe in Clifton Village on the 15th. She was eating a scone and laughing at something I'd said about a difficult terrier at work. Sharp as a tack, no walking frame, no confusion. No mention of solicitors or legal documents or Derek or anything of the sort. I called the firm listed on the power of attorney, Whitmore and Lane, based in Bridgewater. A receptionist answered. I told her I was inquiring about a document prepared for Margaret Hargreaves. She checked the system and said yes, a gentleman had visited the office in early November, after Gran died. He met with a junior solicitor. I asked her to confirm the date, and she gave me the 6th of November. The power of attorney was dated August the 14th, 3 months earlier. The dates didn't match. I wrote everything down in a notebook and underlined it twice. Priya helped me request a copy of Grans' original will from the probate registry. It arrived 4 days later. 3-way split, crystal clear. No mention of any power of attorney anywhere in the document. I called Grans' actual solicitor on Queens Road, the one who drafted the will in 2019. He confirmed he had never prepared a power of attorney for Margaret Hargreaves. Not ever, not for anyone. Then I pulled Grans' medical records through a subject access request to the GP surgery. It took 2 weeks, but when they came through, they showed Gran had been cognitively assessed as fully capable during her final months. No dementia diagnosis, no confusion noted, no concerns flagged by any clinician. Even if she had signed something, it wouldn't have been under duress or incapacity. But she didn't sign anything. I knew that because I went to the shoebox under my bed, where I keep every birthday card Gran ever sent me. I compared her handwriting to the signature on the forged document. It wasn't even close. Gran wrote in small, neat, slanted cursive. The signature on Derek's document was round and upright and looked like someone trying to copy handwriting they'd only glanced at once. Priya dug into the buyer, Avangate Holdings Limited. She pulled the company's house filing and found it had been incorporated just 6 weeks before the sale. A shell company. Registered address at a serviced office in Portishead. The sole director was a man called Gary Nolan. I didn't recognize the name, but Liam did. He said, "That's Derek's golf mate, the one with the property portfolio he's always going on about." Everything clicked into place. Then Derek started pushing back. He sent me a text at 11 at night. "Drop this. You're embarrassing yourself and disrespecting Mom's memory. She chose me for a reason." I screenshotted it and saved it to 3 places. He tried a different angle with Liam. Called him the next day and offered him £20,000 in cash to walk away. Liam had the presence of mind to hit record on his phone. Derek's voice on that recording is something I'll never forget. Calm, patronizing, certain he'd win. "Take the 20 grand, son. Claire's always been difficult. Don't let her drag you into a legal mess you can't afford." Liam said nothing. Just let him talk. Then hung up and sent me the file. Derek's wife, Suzanne, called me 2 days later, crying. She said I was tearing the family apart. She said Derek did what Maggie would have wanted. I stayed calm. I told her, if Derek did nothing wrong, he's got nothing to worry about. She hung up on me. Through bank records we obtained later, I found out Derek had over £40,000 in personal debts. Credit cards maxed. A defaulted car loan on the BMW. An unpaid tax bill from a letting agency he ran in 2020 that went under. The motive was right there in black and white. Priya and I compiled everything into a dossier. The forged power of attorney with mismatched dates. The land registry transfer. The shell company. Grans medical records. The handwriting comparison. The recorded phone call where Derek tried to bribe my brother. I took the dossier to Avon and Somerset Police and filed a report. Fraud, forgery, theft. The officer who took my statement read through the folder and looked up at me and said, "This is thorough." That same week, I instructed a solicitor to file a civil claim through Bristol County Court seeking an emergency injunction to freeze Derek's accounts and reverse the sale. Liam called his old university friend, Marcus Chen, forensic accountant working for a firm in Cardiff. Marcus agreed to help us pro bono because he was furious on principle. Over one weekend, he traced every penny, £287,000 paid by Avangate Holdings into Derek's personal Barclays account, then split across 3 transfers. One to an account in the Isle of Man, one to a joint account with Suzanne, and a cash withdrawal of £15,000. Marcus documented every transaction with timestamps and routing details. He told me, he moved fast, but not fast enough. The money's traceable, and none of it has left the jurisdiction of a UK court order. On the 14th of December, 2 things arrived on the same day. A letter from Bristol County Court confirming our injunction hearing was scheduled for the 9th of January, and a voicemail from Derek, his voice low and venomous, barely above a whisper. "You've made a very stupid mistake, Claire. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I saved the voicemail, added it to the dossier, and I slept better that night than I had in weeks. January the 9th, Bristol County Court. A small functional room with fluorescent lights and gray carpet and no drama at all. Just the law doing what it does. Claire and Liam sat on one side with their solicitor, a woman called Helen Greaves, who Priya's former colleagues had recommended. She had the dossier in a black binder, tabbed and indexed, every page in order. Derek arrived 12 minutes late, red-faced, breathing hard. He had a barrister with him, a man in a pinstripe suit who looked like he'd been hired about 48 hours earlier. Derek didn't look at me. He didn't look at Liam. He sat down and stared at the table in front of him. The district judge was a woman called Judge Hargreaves. No relation to Gran, just one of those coincidences that made my chest tighten. She read through the evidence file without expression, took her time, turned every page. Derek's barrister stood and argued the power of attorney was legitimate, that Margaret Edwards had granted her son full authority over the property prior to her death, that the sale was conducted in good faith. Judge Hargreaves listened. Then she asked one question. "Can you produce the original signed document with witness signatures?" Derek's barrister paused, adjusted his tie, then admitted the original could not be located. The silence in that room lasted about 4 seconds. It felt like a month. Helen stood and presented the dossier, the backdated document, the confirmation from Whitmore and Lane that Derek visited their office in November, not August. The handwriting analysis, comparing Grans' actual signature to the forgery. Grans' medical records showing full cognitive capacity. Marcus's financial trace showing £287,000 moving from Avangate Holdings into Derek's Barclays account and then splitting 3 ways. The recorded phone call where Derek offered Liam $20,000 to walk away. The threatening voicemail. Every piece laid out clean and calm. The judge asked Derek if he wished to speak. He stood. He buttoned his jacket. He said, "My mother trusted me. I was her son. She wanted me to take care of things." Helen responded without standing. Mrs. Margaret Edwards trusted the law. She had a will drafted by a qualified solicitor in 2019. She did not sign a power of attorney. The document Mr. Edwards presented to the land registry is a forgery. The subsequent sale was fraudulent. Judge Hargreaves ruled from the bench. Full asset freeze on all of Derek's accounts. Reversal of the property sale. Referral of the forgery evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service for criminal charges. She said the words quietly, almost matter-of-factly, like she was reading a shopping list. But each one landed on Derek like a stone. He sat down heavily. His barrister whispered something in his ear. Derek stared at the floor. Outside the court, in the January drizzle, Liam put his arm around my shoulder. Neither of us smiled. There was nothing to celebrate. Just a wrong being put right. The weeks after that moved fast. Derek was charged with fraud by false representation, forgery, and theft. Released on bail with conditions. Surrender of passport. No contact with me or Liam. Gary Nolan cooperated with the police and confirmed Derek had approached him with the entire scheme. Avangate Holdings was placed under investigation. Derek and Suzanne's joint accounts were frozen. She filed for separation within 2 months. The property sale was legally reversed. The developer had purchased in good faith and was compensated through a separate insurance claim. The house came back to our names on the land registry. 3 weeks after the ruling, Suzanne called me. She sounded exhausted. She said Derek wanted to apologize. I agreed to meet him at a cafe in Broadmead, neutral ground. He arrived looking 10 years older. His suit didn't fit properly anymore. He sat across from me and said, "I'm sorry. I was in debt. I panicked. I know it doesn't excuse it." I listened. I didn't shout. I said, "You stole from your own mother's grave, Derek. I don't know if I can ever forgive that, but I'm not going to carry hatred around for the rest of my life either." We didn't hug. I left first. I doubt we'll ever be close again, and I've made peace with that. Liam and I sold the Clifton house, properly, through a reputable estate agent. It went for £295,000. We split the proceeds equally, exactly as Gran intended. I put my share towards a deposit on a small flat in Bedminster, close to the clinic. I adopted a greyhound I'd been fostering through work, named her Maggie. Liam used his share to set up his own electrical contracting business in Bath. We visited Gran's grave together on what would have been her 85th birthday and brought daffodils, her favorite. People ask me if I'm angry at Derek. Honestly, I was. For months, I was furious. But what I feel now is something quieter. Gran raised me to believe that doing the right thing is never wasted, even when it's hard, even when it's slow. She kept every receipt, every letter, every document in that house, neatly filed in a bureau drawer. And in the end, that's what saved us. Her ordinary, stubborn belief that the truth is always worth keeping. I think about her every time I open my own filing cabinet. I think she'd like that. I think she'd say, "Good girl, Claire. Now put the kettle on."